There are things I have been waiting to say, and I have been waiting too long, and I am 104 years old, and the waiting is finished. My name is Clara. I am 104 years old, and I want to talk to you today not about the mistakes I have made or the habits that cost me or the wisdom I arrived at late, though all of those things are real, and some of them I have told in other conversations, but about something more fundamental than any of them, something that sits beneath the mistakes and the habits and the wisdom as the ground from which they all grew. Something that I have been circling for 104 years, and that I want to say directly now because the directly is what I have left, and the directly is what you deserve, and the directly is the only form in which the most important things can be said without losing the most important part of them in the saying. I want to tell you what I know about being alive. I was born in 1920 in a small house in eastern Tennessee, the second of 4 children, into a world that has changed so completely in the 104 years since that the describing of it to someone who was not there requires a translation between 2 almost entirely different ways of being human in the world. I have made that translation in my own interior across 10 decades of watching the world become something my childhood could not have imagined. And the making of it has given me a perspective on what remains constant across all the changing that I want to offer you as the most honest and most valuable thing I can give. What remains constant is this: the human being needs to be known. That is the first and most fundamental thing I want to say, and I want to say it as simply as I have just said it, rather than elaborating it into something more impressive, because the simplicity is the truth of it, and the elaboration would be the softening of the truth into something more manageable, and the managing of the truth is what I have been doing for 104 years, and what I am finished doing. The need to be known is the need that runs beneath every other need, beneath the need for food and shelter and safety, not more pressing than those needs in the biological sense, but more continuously present than they are in the experiential sense. The need that does not resolve when it is met, but deepens, that grows more important rather than less important, as the years accumulate and the person accumulates into the specific and particular and irreplaceable thing that a long life makes a person into. I have been known by 3 people in my 104 years in the full sense of known that I mean. My mother, who died when I was 31, and who knew me in the specific and complete way that the best mothers know their children, not the idealized version, but the actual version, the version with the fears and the failures, and the specific and sometimes unflattering particulars that the actual knowing requires access to, and that the idealized knowing protects the knower from having to hold. My husband George, who died in 1989, and who knew me across 49 years of marriage with the increasing completeness of a man who had decided early that the actual Margaret was more interesting than any version he might prefer her to be, and who therefore kept looking at the actual Margaret rather than the version he might have preferred, and whose looking produced in me the specific and sustaining experience of being genuinely seen across the decades of a shared life. And my granddaughter Ellen, who is 56 years old and who has been coming to see me every Sunday for the last 12 years, with the specific and unhurried attention of someone who has decided that the 104 years of her grandmother's interior life is something worth knowing, and who has asked questions that no one else thought to ask, and who has received the answers with the quality of reception that makes the answering feel like the gift rather than the burden. 3 people. In 104 years. I want to say something about what the knowing by those 3 people has produced in me. and about what the absence of that quality of knowing in the relationships where it was absent has produced, because the contrast is the instruction, and the instruction is the most important thing I can offer. The knowing produces the specific and irreplaceable experience of existing fully, not the performing of existence, which is what most of daily life requires and which I have done with the thoroughness of someone who understood the requirement and met it consistently, but the actual and unperformed existence of a specific person who is being received as the specific person she is, rather than as the role she is occupying or the presentation she is offering or the version of herself that she has calculated is most likely to produce the response she needs from the person she is with. The performing of existence is exhausting in the specific and bodily way of something that consumes energy without replenishing it. And I have been performing existence for most of my 104 years with the specific and comprehensive exhaustion that the performance eventually produces in a person who has been doing it long enough to feel the cumulative weight of it. The three relationships in which the performance was not required, in which the actual Clara was welcome rather than managed, were the relationships in which I rested in the specific and restorative way that genuine rest requires the actual self rather than the performed one to be present. I want to tell you something about love, because I am 104 years old and I have loved people for 104 years, and I want to say what I have learned about it in the direct way that this age and this occasion require. Love is not primarily a feeling. I want to say that clearly, because the feeling is real, and the feeling is the part that most people associate with love, and the feeling is not the whole of the thing, and is not even, in my experience, the most important part of the thing. The feeling is the beginning, and the sustaining of it is the practice, and the practice is the daily and specific and sometimes effortful choosing of the person you love as the person you are attending to, with the full weight of your genuine interest rather than with the portion that remains after the rest of your attention has been distributed elsewhere. George practiced this. I want to tell you about George practicing this because I think the description of a person actually practicing love in the daily and specific way is more useful than the abstract description of what the practice requires. George asked me questions about my interior life every day across 49 years. Not the social questions that daily life produces, not how was your day and what do you need from the market, but the genuine questions about what I was thinking about and what I was feeling and what I was discovering about myself and the world and what I most wanted and what I most feared. He asked these questions not as a therapeutic exercise, but as the natural expression of genuine interest in the person he was sharing his life with. And the asking of them daily across 49 years produced in me the specific and comprehensive experience of being known that I described as one of the primary goods of my life. Ask the genuine questions, not as the performance of interest, but as the genuine expression of it. And if you cannot yet feel the genuine interest in the specific and particular interior life of the person you love, consider whether the absence of the interest is the absence of the love, or whether it is the absence of the practice that the interest requires, because in my experience the genuine interest deepens with the practice of attending to its object, and that the attending is available before the interest is fully developed, and that the attending produces the interest rather than waiting for the interest to produce the attending. I want to say something about time because I am 104 years old, and the relationship between time and what I have done with it is among the most clarifying things available to me at this position in my life, and I want to offer the clarity in the most direct form I can. Every hour of your life is an hour that will not come again. I know that sounds obvious. It is not obvious from inside the living of it, from inside the ordinary Tuesday morning when the hour feels like one of an indefinite supply, and the attending to it fully feels like a luxury that the demands of the day do not permit. The attending to it fully is not a luxury. It is the whole of the living. The hour unattended is the hour unliveted, and the unliveted hours accumulate across the years into the unlived life that arrives at the end of the years as the primary and most comprehensive regret available. I have unlimited hours. I want to say that honestly because the honest account requires it, and because the account that presents 104 years as the complete inhabiting of each moment would be the dishonest version. And the dishonest version is not what I am here to give you. I have unlimited hours, and the hours I lived most fully were the hours of genuine presence in genuine relationship with the people I loved and who knew me. And the hours I lived least fully were the hours of the performance and the management and the forward-looking preoccupation that I described at the beginning, and that I am describing again because the repetition is the truth of it, and the truth of it deserves the repetition. I want to say something to you directly, and I want you to receive it as directly as I am giving it. You are alive right now, not approaching your life and not remembering it and not preparing for it. In it, right now, in the specific and unrepeatable moment of this moment, which is the only moment available and which contains within it, if you are receiving it fully, everything that a human life is capable of providing. The person beside you, or the person you will speak to today, deserves your genuine and specific and full attention. Not the portion of it that remains after the phone and the plan and the worry and the forward-looking preoccupation have taken their shares. The full thing. The complete attending to the complete person that produces in the person being attended to the experience of being known that I have described as the primary good of a human life, and that I want you to give to the people you love before you are 104, and the giving of it in the form that the living persons most need, it is no longer available. I am 104 years old. My mother and George and Ellen have known me, and the knowing has been the best thing. Not the achievement, and not the endurance, and not the surviving of the things I survived, and not the wisdom that the surviving produced. The knowing, that is what I wanted to tell you. Be known. Know someone. Do it today. Do it in the next hour. Do it now. That is everything. That is all of it. That is the whole of what 104 years has to give. Go be known. Go know someone. Now.